Governor, just the first thing, the most obvious question, how do you interpret the sweep and the scale of the Republican victory last night in the midterm elections?
Well, I think it was a great victory for the American people. The American people, I think, sent two very distinct messages. One was they wanted to see a change of direction in Washington, D.C., away from the more spending, more deficits, more mandates, more taxes. But the other piece of this, and I heard you guys talking about it, I think, is they also said we want to see more of what we're seeing in Republican leadership at the state level. I mean, when you elect Republican governors in places like Maryland and Massachusetts and our neighbor in Illinois, as well as we add Arkansas and we re-elect Republican governors in places like Wisconsin and Florida and elsewhere, that's a real affirmation of the kind of common sense conservative leadership that Republican governors have been providing at the state level. We've enjoyed here in Indiana for much of the last 10 years. It's producing real results. So I think that's really the two messages. Number one is change direction in Washington, D.C., but number two is with the expanding field of Republican governors all over the country, including in New England, I think the American people are saying we want to see more of that kind of common sense conservative leadership at the state level.
Governor, those of our viewers who have bookmarked the Almanac of AmericanPolitics.com know you used to be a congressman before you were governor, so you're a pretty good student at Capitol Hill. What do you think the prospects are that the personal relationship between the president and John Boehner, between the president and Mitch McConnell, can get better sufficiently? They don't have to become best friends, but that they trust each other enough to make those kind of compromises and changes.
Look, as you remember, Mark, I was in the Congress for 12 years and actually was in Republican leadership the year that we won the majority back in 2010. And, you know, when I heard what the president said today, it's a little frustrating to me. It sounds a little bit like what the president said after 2010. He says to the American people who voted yesterday that I hear you, but then again we're hearing word about executive action. I think it's never been a personal problem between the leadership in the Republican Party and this president. I think it's been the willingness of this president to provide leadership and look for those areas where there can be genuine common ground. And I think there's a bunch of areas where they could get some good things done to get the economy moving. We could do some tax reform, especially in the area of business taxes in this country. We could do infrastructure, defense spending. There's a broad range of areas that I think could get this economy moving again, contribute to a stronger America. But it's going to take the president exercising some leadership to say, I'm willing to work with you to find genuine common ground. And my hope is when they get together later this week that we'll see that kind of leadership from the president after this deafening message from the American people, different than we saw after the midterm in 2010.
Governor, I made a little joking allusion to 2016 when I introduced you, but I do want to ask you about that. I know you think that the next Republican nominee needs to be a conservative. That's, you know, taken for granted. I know you also think that, from the basis of a couple speeches you've given recently, that you think it probably needs to be a governor. So I'm going to ask you to rule yourself out for the moment. There's a governor who had a big night last night, as Mark suggested earlier. That's Chris Christie from New Jersey. Is Chris Christie as conservative as you?
Well, let me say back to your earlier point. People sometimes tell me that our next nominee should be a governor, and I always say, you know, I'm certainly sympathetic to that view. But to your point, you know, Chris Christie, Scott Walker. Nikki Haley. We have a great bench of proven leaders at the state level who I think have a lot to offer nationally. And I want to say straight up, Chris Christie, in his role as chairman of the Republican Governors Association, worked his heart out, traveled across the country, raised the resources that managed to see us standing here today, 31 Republican governors in this country, and he made a huge difference in that.
You want to go with the simple yes/no that John's question is: Chris Christie as conservative as you are, yes or no?
Chris Christie's a conservative, and he's my friend, and he's been a strong leader in New Jersey. And you know, bottom line, he provided great leadership in support for Republican governors and our candidates, and the success speaks for itself.
All right. So, Governor, moments ago you followed me on Twitter. Three-part question. One, do you know what that means? Two, did you press the follow button yourself? And three, more seriously, how do you use social media as both a creator of content and as a consumer of content?
Number one, I do know what following you on Twitter means. Number two, some staff are watching the show must have done that because I wasn't aware of it.
How do you
number
use
three,
social
I'm going to
media?
ask them why they hadn't followed you already.
No, but how do you use social media as a creator of content and as a consumer? How do you use it? Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest.
We try and use it. We try and use it a great deal. You know, for me, using Twitter as a means of communicating real-time information about what we're doing for the people of Indiana as governor is vitally important. Facebook is a way of staying in touch with people, and direct email going directly to our supporters around the state of Indiana and a bit around the country is vitally important. It represents an extraordinary improvement in the closeness and in the feedback that people in public life get, and we work on it every day. Apparently my staff's doing a pretty good job if they went ahead and followed you on Twitter during this interview.
Governor, Mark and I have both spent our fair amount of time in Indianapolis, and every time we go, we ask around, we say, what's like the great food specialty, the delicacy of Indiana? We have a hard time getting a good answer to that question, but eventually someone finally said, it's persimmons. Persimmons is the thing. There's a persimmon festival here. So I've been to that persimmon festival, and I want to know from you whether you've ever had persimmon pudding, and if you had it, what the best persimmon pudding is you've ever had. It's really the state delicacy in your state. You better have a good answer for this.
Well, listen, I can endorse the persimmon puddings, I can endorse persimmons, but look, you can't get a bad meal in the state of Indiana. You know, for almost 200 years, we've done two things well. We make things, we grow things, and you guys got to come back real soon and enjoy all the great fare here in our capital city and, frankly, all over the state of Indiana.
Will you invite us over and make us a corn on the cob or something?
I'm prepared to invite you over, and we'll make some corn on the cob. You'll enjoy that. You know, this is the world capital of popcorn. Orville Redenbacher's home. You guys just come on. You won't leave Indiana hungry.
All right, the popcorn man.